Live from KSAT 12, the Nightbeat starts right now.
Let's start tonight with what's on top of mind, the heat. We're all so hot. It's been 105 today, which normally at this point would seem normal, but there's something different about today.
Yeah, today's been pretty significant. We know the past several weeks have been hot. In fact, the past several months across South Central Texas, that's just been the big theme of this summer. Take a look at the almanac data for today. Yes, 105 and extremely toasty into the weekend. Didn't actually hit the record for the day, though, of 106. But here's why today is so significant. It marked our 60th triple-digit day that we have seen so far this year. That now breaks the record for the most number of 100-degree plus days that we've ever seen in a given year on record, now surpassing 2009 with 59. And it's still going to be hot as we head into the upcoming work week. Today, we did find a little bit of rain on the radar, especially across the hill country and just north of Bexar County. That was all thanks to a weak quote-unquote cool front that's been pushing through. I want to be clear, it's still going to be hot, and that's not really going to impact our temperatures that much in the days ahead, but another chance for at least some rain on the radar is expected tomorrow afternoon. So we'll get you a look at the latest version of Futurecast, and yes, still talk about those toasty temperatures into the week ahead coming up in just a few, Tim.
Then, Mia. Now to lessons learned in a drought. You may have heard about Jacob's Well going dry for the first time. The popular watering hole tied to the Trinity Aquifer was being overpumped by a Hays County water utility.
The question is, could that happen here? Legal protections exclusive to the Edwards Aquifer are saving our drinking water. The Edwards Aquifer Authority, which regulates the aquifer, tells the night team's Camelia Juarez about the Hill Country's culture of stewardship.
The last historic drought in the 1950s caused the Comal Springs to stop flowing for nearly 5 months. In the late 80s, there was a growing concern that the Edwards Aquifer would not be able to serve the rapidly growing San Antonio area. That's when the Edwards Aquifer Authority Act was codified to make sure everyone could get the water they need.
Although levels are low, spring flows are low, but they're continuing to flow. And so all we're doing is using these tools to manage through the drought to get us to the next rainy season.
Today, people who have permits to pump from the Edwards Aquifer could soon be asked to enter the most stringent conservation efforts. Currently, we're in stage 4, which is a 40% annual reduction. The Edwards Aquifer Authority says it expects to enter stage 5 for the first time, which means permit holders will be asked to cut back even more.
We're kind of teetering between stage 4 and stage 5, so things are not looking, great, but it could be much worse if these programs were not in place.
Unlike any other groundwater conservation district, there is a legal cap on how much water can be pumped out of the Edwards Aquifer. Based on last year's data, permit holders did not use all the water they were allotted, despite experiencing stage 4 restrictions like we are now.
We didn't get close to the cap, the reduced cap, as a result of the cutbacks. There was actually about 76,000 acre feet of water that could have been used that didn't get used.
San Antonio Water System has the most permits to pump from the aquifer, but it has never exceeded their limit. SAWS attributes that to diversifying their water resources through desalination, water tanks, and pumping from other bodies of water like Canyon Lake.
During drought periods, we absolutely need all those different sources so that you're not completely reliant on one source that may or may not be there in a particular year.
The Edwards Aquifer Authority Act not only protects the water we all drink, but endangered species like this one, the Texas blind salamander. Ruiz says that the legal protections from the Edwards Aquifer Authority Act created a culture of sustainability.
We just have this tremendous awareness and this stewardship sense about us that I think speaks well to the work of the mission of the Edwards Aquifer Authority and how that has kind of helped promulgate this conservation effort.
Camelia Juarez, KSAT 12 News.
And these record-breaking temperatures have also led to record-breaking water levels in Canyon Lake.
Yeah, in just the last month, Canyon Lake has dropped 2 feet, down now to just over 892 feet total. We beat the old record today by an inch, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better anytime soon. SAW says they are keeping a close eye on Canyon Lake, a water source for so many that we depend on every day, especially in this record-breaking summer.
So for example, Canyon Lake, we get water from Canyon Lake. That has been reduced as well because of drier conditions. And so that one we see some impacts. We have a Trinity Aquifer, which reduces as well in drought. Some of the other ones are a little more drought tolerant. They're not affected by year-to-year drought.
Before today, the lowest lake level ever recorded was back in September 2009.
Hawaiian Electric denying reports that the company removed evidence related to the deadly wildfire investigation on Maui. The Washington Post, the first to report the company may have tampered with evidence in Lahaina, but a spokesperson for the company says that's not accurate. Some people on the island have sued the company, saying they failed to shut down power lines ahead of the fire despite high wind and red flag warnings. So far, 115 people have died from those fires and hundreds are still missing.
Closer to home, though, a restaurant in Universal City hoping to help fellow Americans suffering thousands of miles away. The Night Team's Avery Everett shows us how they're using signature dishes to show support for those people impacted by the devastating Maui wildfires.
Every song has a message. And Kainoa Kamaka is hoping Hawaii can hear his.
As far as where we go, the aloha that we have for our state and for each other never dies.
Kamaka is a well-known musician from Maui, but now lives here in San Antonio. He was one of hundreds today in Universal City, singing, eating, and sharing the love of Hawaii for his greater Hawaiian family.
It's going to be a long haul to rebuild an entire community from the ground up.
Just weeks after the Maui wildfire, families across the island are left picking up the pieces. Thousands of buildings are destroyed. More than 100 people are dead and hundreds of others are still missing.
It's so horrific. What I tell people is like what Lahaina is to Maui, what's the river walk to San Antonio.
This restaurant is thousands of miles away from Maui, but they say their ohana, their family in Hawaii, is hurting. And they're hoping to turn their meals here in San Antonio into something more for the people of Lahaina.
That's my home, my people.
The owners of Big Aloha say they want to help however they can, because Hawaii is their home.
We feel helpless, so we're trying to do the best we possibly can. It's me. That's who I am. That's what I am.
Using their food to help fundraise.
We're doing kalua pig, which is traditional Hawaiian food.
This is far from their final song to help those in Hawaii.
It's not over. This is a long run.
But they hope it's one note that leaves a lasting impact.
And Hawaiians has a word for that. We say imua, is to move forward.
Avery Everett, KSAT 12 News.
Taking a look at other stories we're following tonight. A man is in the hospital after he was attacked by a man wielding a hammer. It happened at a home on Stagecoach Lane near Highway 90 this afternoon, when police say the victim went to the suspect's home to confront him. Now, when that victim refused to leave the home, police say that's when the suspect grabbed a hammer and hit the man. Bystanders ended up taking that victim to the hospital. The suspect, though, claiming his house was being destroyed by the guy, so he was defending himself. Police still investigating the incident right now. No charges have been filed.
San Antonio police also investigating after a man was shot trying to escape a carjacking. This happened early this morning between Highway 90 and West Military Drive. SAPD says the victim picked up two people at a gas station, then drove to a motel for a party. When they got there, the people in the car tried to rob him. He was shot several times and taken to the hospital with some serious injuries. Those suspects are still on the loose.
Jacksonville, Florida is a wonderful place full of wonderful people. And one evil man who decided to take his hateful rhetoric and his hateful thoughts and put those into action, they cannot shake our resolve. And we will not allow it to do so.
The city of Jacksonville grieving the day after 3 innocent lives were taken at a Dollar General. A racially motivated white gunman shot and killed 3 black people at that store. Alicia Hatcher from our sister station was at a prayer vigil for those victims just a few hours ago and spoke with some of the relatives.
The emotions are still running high in the wake of the shooting here in this community, and we saw that as people in the community gathered with city and state leaders to pay their respects and to pray for the families of those victims. People in the community have also placed 3 crosses of those 3 individuals' lives who were lost and placed their name on these crosses along with candles and flowers and teddy bears to remember their life.
We will be citizens that make a difference.
Hundreds of people in the community came together to pay their respects to the 3 innocent lives lost in a racially motivated shooting at Idalia General Saturday. 52-year-old Angela Carr, 19-year-old Anot Joseph Laguerre Jr., and 29-year-old Gerald Gallion were the 3 lives taken. Community pastors, along with city and state leaders, joined together to say enough is enough.
No more division.
Gerald Gallion's family was at the vigil and shared their grief.
I just hope something get done. Enough is enough, and I have to be my brother's voice. Our family have to be his voice because he don't have a voice no more. His voice was silenced forever yesterday.
They say Gallion was a devoted father who was a hard worker.
Funny, loving, caring. Will give you his last if he had it.
They say they found out about his death through social media. A former co-worker who worked with A.J. Laguerre at the Dollar General was also there. He had a message for Laguerre's family.
I want to tell Grandma I'm sorry because I wasn't there to protect her like I told her I would a couple months ago. She wanted him to quit because she was scared somebody would come up and shoot him. And then a couple months later, this happens.
Coggins says he will always cherish the memories he shared with Laguerre.
He had a dog toy up at the register because he was very quiet. Speaking to him as close as we are, you wouldn't hear him. And I told him, I said, well, if you need me, holler. He never would, but he had a little pig squeak toy. And he said, if I squeeze it hard, come running.
The Gallion family says they wish the community would come together more outside of just a tragedy. Alicia Hatcher, KSAT 12.
Still ahead on the Night Beat, a man with San Antonio connections is leading the recovery effort on the ground in Maui. What he's doing to help people that lived through the disaster. And a local mother struggling to go on without her teenage son who took his life, who she says needs to step up to prevent this public health concern from growing.
And 60 years ago this weekend, thousands marched in our nation's capital as part of the fight for civil rights. How MLK's dream is being kept alive 6 decades later. The work still to be done. Next on the Night Beat.
Tomorrow will mark the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington. Hundreds of thousands of people from across the United States flooded Washington, D.C. to fight for civil rights. 6 decades later, ABC's Faith Abube shows us how people are still working to keep Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream alive.
60 years after that first March on Washington, where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered that iconic I Have a Dream speech, thousands back at the nation's capital this weekend to remember a defining moment that inspired change.
I'm Andrew Young, and I've been here before. It's been a long but wonderful struggle. And I'm here to tell you that I don't feel no ways tired.
From civil rights icons like Andrew Young, who marched alongside Dr. King, to the King's own 15-year-old granddaughter, Yolanda.
If I could speak to my grandfather today, I would say, I am sorry we still have to be here to rededicate ourselves to finishing your work.
Marchers citing voter suppression, reproductive rights, and the end of affirmative action for bringing them here.
The things we won back in the 60s are taken away.
Cortland Cox, who helped organize the original March on Washington, agrees, but says he's optimistic that the new generation can carry on the fight.
Black people used to be killed and by the police and vigilantes, and nobody cared. And right now, if a black man gets killed by the police, it's a much more serious discussion. So my sense is the young people of today took on that responsibility.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the clock of progress is turning in the right direction?
Oh no, it has turned in the right direction. It has turned in the right direction, and we now have to understand where we are and how much farther we have to go.
And the act.
That was ABC's Faith Abube.
Yes, back here at home, it has been another hot one. We are dropping the records left and right, but we also saw some showers this evening, which gives us hope for maybe some more.
Yep, at least another chance, especially by tomorrow afternoon. So it wasn't for everybody today, but I want to show you a radar time lapse of what we saw at least out there on the radar generally over the past 6 hours. So take a look at this. We had a weak cool front that's been moving through central Texas. We saw some of that activity bubble up across the hill country, southern Edwards Plateau. Then, especially as we got closer to sunset, we started losing that daytime heat. Whatever was left out there on the radar has pretty much fizzled out, and the rest of that green that you're seeing there is just radar noise. And as we take a look at some of the estimated rainfall totals from your authority radar here on the northwest side of San Antonio, just a couple hundredths of an inch just northwest of the Med Center. Medina Lake area, about 0.2 of an inch of rain. Sisterdale, though, closer to half of an inch estimated up there in Kendall County. So again, most of us missed out, but at least we were able to track a little bit of activity out there earlier today. And once again, it's not going to touch everybody tomorrow, but especially as we head into the afternoon hours, generally in between about 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., that's when we are expecting another chance for some widely separated showers and storms to work across portions of south central Texas. The catalyst behind this activity, still that weak quote unquote cool front that's going to continue working its way farther southward. Temperatures are still going to be hot in the week ahead, but with the moisture in place, the lift and atmospheric support associated with that boundary, that's what gives us that chance as we get ready to kick off the upcoming work week. So speaking of which, through the overnight tonight, and especially by the time you're stepping out tomorrow morning, most of us are quiet, not really expecting any issues out there on the roadways. And that's going to be the theme throughout the first half of the day and into the early afternoon. But notice as we head into the 2-3 p.m. time frame, that's when we start to monitor for a few isolated showers and stray rumbles to get up and running. And then that 40% potential comes into play, especially farther south and west into the later portions of the afternoon, 4, 5, 6 o'clock. And then as we get closer to sunset, once again, we lose that daytime heat, and whatever is left out there does look to die down. And I think tomorrow night, most of us will be pretty quiet out there as well. Now, temperature wise, we're going to start off in the upper 70s here in San Antonio first thing tomorrow. Temperatures already climbing though into the mid 90s by noon, upper 90s by 1 o'clock. And I think before we start to see some of that activity really bubble up out there on the radar, we are expecting our forecast high around 100 degrees. And then depending on where we find some showers and storms develop, those temperatures could start to cool off a little bit more into the afternoon, kind of like what we saw today, especially north and west of San Antonio. 102 in Floresville tomorrow, 101 in Seguin, 100 in Canyon Lake, 101 in Castroville. Now, especially as we head into the Tuesday and Wednesday time frame, we're going to dry things out, but I do think a breezy easterly wind is going to start to bring in a little bit more of that drier air. So that will help when it comes to the morning temperatures, more to the tune of the mid 70s, especially by Thursday, but that also elevates the fire danger. So we're going to have to talk about that into this week as well. And then as we head into next weekend, maybe a few more isolated rain chances return. Of course, we'll continue to keep you posted on that. I do want to show you, I feel like it's been a while since we've had a beautiful sunset photo from Woodlawn Lake. Unfortunately, missed out on the rain today, but as those clouds moved in, man, what a beautiful photo from KSAT Connect.
Looks refreshing, doesn't even look hot.
It is, though.
I'm pretending it's not.
Okay, we'll pretend.
All right, Larry will join us with a preview of Instant Replay right after this. The 2023 high school football season is finally underway, and that means big game coverage is very busy getting you most of the highlights in town. With more on what's on Instant Replay tonight, here's Larry Ramirez. We started things off with a bang.
We certainly did with the Pigskin Classic. So week 1 is down. We are already ramped up for week 2. Heck, I got the schedule for week 3 sitting back at my desk on my notepad. That's how busy I am. The second annual KSAT Pigskin Classic was a huge success. 2 days, 4 games at the Dome, and memories those programs will never forget coming up tonight on Instant Replay.
Dorn, deep drop, steps up in the pocket, scrambles, gets hit.
O'Connor Panthers quarterback Ryder Dorn came up with the play of the day yesterday at the KSAT Pigskin Classic. Tonight, we've got the best of big game coverage from week one, best catch, best game, etc. And you know that Dorn, thrown to Luke Valdez, made the cut.
Just close to a lot of these guys. That's the hardest part.
Jerry mentioned as he was walking out of the locker room that you were pretty emotional today. What have the last 36 hours been like for you?
An emotional Will Grier played in what is expected to be his last game with the Dallas Cowboys after the team traded for quarterback Trey Lance. Grier's audition for 31 other teams was a good one as he accounted for 4 total touchdowns in the boys' preseason win last night.
He jumps over the attack. Oh, it's punched away.
San Antonio FC tied Pittsburgh last night, currently the best team in the USL Championship with 51 points. The scoreless draw at Toyota Field pushed SAFC's unbeaten streak to 6 straight matches, tying a season best. What does Connor Maloney have to say about the latest draw? We've got the Houston Texans closing down the preseason, Astros, Rangers, Missions, and inside the ring with Mario Barrios. And who should be the Cowboys' backup quarterback? Cooper Rush or Trey Lance? That's our poll question tonight, and I expect you to answer it, Tim. Not right now.
I'm going to think about it.
Go online and do it.
All
first.
right.
It helps us out.
That helps you out. All right, Larry, I will help you out. In the meantime, KSAT getting a first-hand account from a man on the ground in Maui who led the local emergency response as those fires swept through in the recent weeks, when he's set to visit San Antonio, and how you can help him out. KSAT getting its own insight to what is happening on the ground in Maui. Earlier this week, we told you about a local restaurant manager who previously lived in Lahaina for 25 years.
Yeah, and she connected me to a friend of hers who will be here in San Antonio in just a few weeks. He's been in Maui since the fire started, leading local recovery efforts. He says you can help, and it's not just by donating.
You can only compare it to a war-ravaged, war-torn city.
Respected Maui businessman and philanthropist Garrett Marrero has lived part-time in Maui for at least 20 years. He was there during the fires.
We saw this glow over the mountain.
He owns Maui Brewing Company and several restaurants and says everyone in his business and friend circles survived.
They said 136 homes lost. All teammates accounted for. However, there are some we know that did lose family members.
His businesses were spared, so he immediately cleared them out for those in need.
Literally personally handing cases of steaks and burgers and chicken, and so that they could barbecue because there was no electricity at
the group's efforts turned into a full-blown supply chain operation with a daily convoy to West Maui.
We were the National Guard for the first 3 days. I also, at the same time, was coordinating with people to get FAA to allow us to land into Kapalua because Kapalua is a restricted airport for commercial only. We received that clearance later that day. We were loading planes and flying supplies immediately.
Through social media, he's been dismantling misinformation, including rumors that supplies aren't getting through.
By Friday, Saturday, we were starting to get the way we have too much stuff. Can you slow down the supplies? Because they needed to organize an inventory.
He says the best way to help now is donate money to the vetted local organizations on the ground. He says the biggest piece of misinformation is about tourism, that Maui's closed.
Maui is open. South Maui, Central Maui, all the displaced residents, they want to be working. They want to be able to support their families. And we are highly dependent on tourism.
Late last week, South Maui resorts and condos reported they're running only 12 to 20% occupancy. Marrero says people across the island are already being laid off.
If we don't promote responsible tourism here, we will be creating our own economic disaster unparalleled in the history of Hawaii, including pandemic.
He calls it voluntourism.
Don't go to West Maui and take selfies in front of someone's burned house. Come to stay in South Maui or Central Maui. Consider serving the population in some fashion through a charitable effort.
Help offer hope to a loving community that's always welcomed visitors to their warm Maui family. Courtney Friedman, KSAT 12 News.
Marrero will be in San Antonio in just a few weeks, setting up some fundraisers for Maui alongside the founder of the local Freetail Brewery. We'll let you know when those will be when we get more details. For that list of vetted local organizations on Maui that you can donate to, just find this story on KSAT.com.
Around America, the charges against former President Donald Trump in Georgia facing a major test tomorrow. The Fulton County DA will lay out the details of the anti-racketeering case against Trump and his 18 other co-conspirators, including former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. Tomorrow's hearing will serve as a mini trial that determines the future of Fulton County's case against the former president, and it will center on Meadows' motion to move his case to federal court. This will be the first time arguments will be heard in court about the criminal charges brought against the former president and the other suspects. Trump is expected to file a similar motion to try to get his trial moved to federal court.
Well, schools across the country are struggling to catch up from pandemic-related challenges, despite getting $190 billion in coronavirus relief money to counteract those setbacks. Between March 2020 and 2021, Congress authorized the money for K through 12 schools, which is about 6 times more than they receive for the federal government in a normal year. Yet education experts say the problems still persist. Harvard's Center for Education Policy Research says the average American student lost half a year of learning in math. Some even fell behind by a year and a half. School districts have a year left to use that COVID money, and they may need to change the way they're using it to help close that learning gap.
A 20-year-old University of South Carolina student was shot and killed when he accidentally tried to enter the wrong home. Police say the person who fired the guns mistook the student for a burglar and shot him. The 20-year-old lived on the same street as the house that he tried to enter, which is just a few blocks away from the school. Right now, it's unclear if the person who pulled the trigger will face any charges.
Remote Australian island has claimed the lives of at least 3 Marines and severely injured several others. 23 U.S. Marines were on board participating in a joint exercise between the U.S., Australia, and other Asian countries. ABC's Faith Abube details the tragic accident from Washington.
The U.S. Marine Corps has confirmed some of their personnel died in an Osprey aircraft crash on a remote Australian island on Sunday. The military aircraft carrying 23 service members during a training exercise. It was in support of an operation between the U.S., Australia, and 3 other Southeast Asian countries when it went down on one of the Tui Islands in northern Australia.
2 U.S. Marine Osprey aircraft left Darwin and flew to the Tui Islands, 80 kilometres to the north of Darwin. After 9 a.m, our Joint Communications Centre received reports of an aircraft crashing on Melville Island.
Other Marines on board the Osprey severely injured. Australian Emergency Services helping with the recovery efforts and evacuating the injured to the city of Darwin, about 50 miles away.
We have stood up a number of systems in the Northern Territory to respond to this incident. We are well resourced and well practiced in the Northern Territory in responding to emergencies.
Australia's Prime Minister promising his government's support.
Our focus as a government and as the Department of Defence is very much on incident response and on making sure that every support and assistance is given at this difficult time.
Only U.S. service members were injured in the crash. Faith Abube, ABC News, Washington.
Tonight, Florida bracing for the impact of Tropical Storm Idalia, which is expected to make landfall as a Category 2 hurricane later this week.
Right now, that storm is just off the coast of Mexico and is slowly moving east towards Florida's west coast. Forecasters say the storm will be strengthened by those warm waters in the Gulf of Mexico before it makes landfall. Emergency officials in Florida are warning of heavy rain, strong winds, and flooding by the middle of next week. And Governor Ron DeSantis is telling people to be ready for power outages, too.
If you are in the path of this storm, expect to lose power for a certain amount of time. And so just take whatever precautions are necessary as a result of that.
The governor declared a state of emergency for 33 counties that could be impacted by the storm.
Yes, definitely something that we're going to continue to monitor very closely over the next few days. We're just 14 days away from the official peak of the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season, and of course, we have seen the activity ramp up. Here is Tropical Storm Idalia this 10 p.m. hour, hanging out near the Yucatan Peninsula. Winds up to 60 miles per hour sustained, gusting upwards of 70 miles per hour. It is going to start that northward track into the eastern Gulf of Mexico tomorrow. take a look at the water temperatures, upper 80s and low 90s, definitely capable enough of supporting and even strengthening that system. It is currently forecasted to become a hurricane by tomorrow evening, continue that track through the eastern Gulf, and yes, maybe make landfall in between Pensacola and Tampa as a Category 2 hurricane by the middle of the upcoming week. So, of course, we'll continue to keep you posted for all of our friends and family out that way in the days ahead. Back here at home, just hot and another chance for some scattered storms tomorrow afternoon. We'll get you another look at that setup in a few, Tim.
Things are getting busy out there, Mia. All right, coming up after the break, a local mother pleading for school districts to step up and stop a major public health crisis. Her story next on the Nightbeat.